Today, we are going to ask the man, the myth, the legend, Spencer Smith, about who he is, what he got him into this industry, kind of the creative threads that undermine everything that he does. Okay. So, because we talk so much about health insurance, healthcare, the landscape, which is all extremely important, but we want to know you, bro.
Oh, shoot.
We want to get to know Spencer.
Jeez, I hope I'm actually interested.
Yeah, no gotcha questions.
No gotcha.
Just get to know the man.
I already told you the impression question. You're not getting an impression out of me. Sorry,
We're getting to Christopher Walken at some point, now that Nathaniel let it slip. First one. Okay. You have a background in media, acting, and entertainment.
Yeah.
When or how did you think of bringing that into the insurance landscape?
Great question. So I started in that because I had identity as a soccer player first, and I didn't know what to do after that. So I got this interest in I'm going to get into acting and comedy and try to do fun stuff. And then I sunset that for about 10 years because I didn't really pursue it fully as a career. And then I realized, watching guys like Andy Neary, Dr. Eric Bricker, some other folks out there making great content, I'm like, well, I could use my skills that I had over here, but I could teach. Maybe I should just try it and become my own producer and my own editor and everything. Yeah. And I literally stumbled onto it the first time doing a whiteboard video on stop loss insurance, and it kind of took off. And that reinforced to me that, oh, there's something there. You should lean in. And 4 years ago, and now look. It's crazy, man.
It's wild.
It was such an accident too, but it's been fun.
Yeah. You told me yesterday that you have a background in stand-up comedy.
Dude.
What's the biggest thing? The biggest thing you've taken from that background and brought into the work you do today?
Great question. So the biggest thing I've taken from comedy is economy of words. And so what I mean by that is when you write, most people presume that if you add more words to a joke, or you add more punchlines, or you add more to a post or a book, it's actually the opposite makes it better. And so most people, especially early on, will just throw stuff at it to try to find something that's funny.
Yep.
In comedy, what you remove that's unnecessary to get to the point as quickly as possible actually makes your jokes better. So the first version of a joke is going to be way longer than the actual finished version of a joke, because what you extract is actually improving it.
Yeah. Refining, using 5 words when 10, you want to use 10.
Yeah, and don't have a 3-sentence setup to get to the joke. How quickly can you set up the joke and get straight into the punchline? Stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Another thread, how did your upbringing, you told me a little bit about how you were raised, but take the question however you want. How did your upbringing affect the work that you do now?
So my upbringing, we had a middle-class upbringing. Dad was a construction business owner. My mom did payroll and checking and banking and stuff like that. So I think my upbringing of one, seeing entrepreneurs run a business out of the house, the good and the bad, that comes from that. But 2, the discipline that was required to where you're basically working 7 days a week and 15 hours a day if you have to. Recognizing that with the buck essentially stopped with my dad. So the phone call he had to take, he had to send that email, he had to be there. If he didn't do it, nobody would. And so I recognized the discipline that was required to be successful, and that's translated into my career.
Yeah. Everybody tries to find balance, this work-life balance thing. And as an entrepreneur, like you just said, working 7 days a week, taking the call, having to do that, you probably have some sort of system in your brain that's very calculated. How do you not fry yourself and burn out with all the work you do?
Celsius. Honestly, man, I think every successful person should take care of themselves, actually take care of their health. So that's what you eat, what you feed yourself. Celsius is the exception. Get enough sleep, all those things that I think just routinely a human being should be really adamant about doing. And from there, I think your ability to stretch yourself or push yourself with work, I think from there you have now the better capacity to be able to do that and to recover and do it all over again. So for me, it really comes down to how do I take care of myself, and that translates into success. But I also set boundaries, man. I mean, I rarely open my laptop on the weekends. I do whatever I can to not have to bring my laptop in or send emails on the weekend. And then at a certain point at night, no matter what, I'm doing everything I can to be with my family. Those are the hours I get with them, and so I protect that at all costs. And I think if you just set those boundaries appropriately, and then you have to hold yourself accountable to them, if you do those things, then whatever balance you need, you can find in life.
You said something interesting. So you live in this interesting world. We spend a lot of time talking about how insurance, healthcare, it tends to be high-level, mustardy shit, if we can quote McConaughey. But you also bring a creative element. So you're pretty much, and not an even split, but pretty close to creative and very logical.
Yeah.
What do you do to reset? Because you're doing both things. Most logical people got to do creative stuff to reset and refresh. Most creative people need to go do something logical to refresh.
Yeah,
what does Spencer do to refresh?
Well, I think it comes down to, and I'll use a corollary that'll make sense when I explain it. Like when I took the SAT, I literally was 100% the exact same score in verbal and math. And so I've already always had like this balance to me as a human being. If I go too far down the creative path, I'm not fulfilled. If I go too far down the logic path, I'm also not fulfilled.
Got it.
I have the appropriate amount of, like, if you were to whatever that ratio may be, this, what I get to do with Pareto, what I get to do with the podcast, but then I can go back to work and send emails and set on a webinar and run a Zoom. Like for me, I don't want to do either or to the extreme.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect marriage of those two things.
Cool.
So whether I sought out a job that allowed that or it came to me as a result of like who I am as a person, I don't know the answer to that. But I know this balance I have today is incredibly fulfilling.
Sure.
And so I just sort of almost arrived here.
Cool.
As well. I don't have I guess a better answer than that.
Yeah. Another thing is you, as an entrepreneur, as doing something very, very unique in the space, you have to have accountability. I mean, this is probably a good thread to get into stoicism, philosophy, all this stuff, but having accountability partners to make sure, no man is an island, and left to our own devices, we'll fizzle out.
Yeah.
How do you set up accountability for yourself? Is that typically like in your marriage? Is that with coworkers? Is that with friends, family? I don't know. How do you just put up these guardrails to make sure that while you're doing a very unicorn thing, you're not going off the rails? How does that work?
Well, I think you touched on one of the elements, that's family, right? So I'm the breadwinner in the family. So if I'm not bringing the bread, then nobody is. And so I think when you look at like, what do I want to deliver for my family, my wife and my children, what kind of life, like that is my obligation to them. That is the role that I play. And so that family is really important. And then you look at like somebody like Nathaniel, who sort of holds me accountable, helps, add capacity to my day as well.
Yeah.
I think what you see on camera, you don't realize how much work is being done off camera by somebody like him. And so I found that having the right support system and the folks around you makes where like I have no choice but to succeed and to do the things I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I also grew up in a world where you just sort of, I'll give you a great example. My parents never rewarded me for an A on a report card.
Okay.
But it was always understood. And I've even tried to like track back and go, where does this come from?
Yeah.
It was always understood you're supposed to get A's. And so I just understood it implicitly, and I always got A's.
Okay.
So like there's never been this heavy-handed, like you need to do this, if you don't do this or else. I just sort of go, I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
And I just did it.
Yeah.
Like I know, like some people maybe I'm just wired weird or something. But you don't have to have as much accountability if you just understood it's what you're supposed to do and you go do it.
Yeah.
And the more you go do it, the more successful you are. It's like, well, why would I do anything else? Why do I need to be accountable to anything else?
Yeah. Stick to the mission.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but doing something unique, following the playbook.
Yeah.
Chelsea Rikis, shout out Chelsea. She said, a little while ago, she sat at a conference and she was listening to somebody talking about like, hey, you want to make a fortune in this business? Just follow the playbook.
Yeah.
It's really tempting to follow the playbook. But to be an entrepreneur, and I think you're doing what most of us want to do. Everybody has a dream, has a vision, has some sort of creative act in their spirit that they want to go do. But for some reason, especially in insurance and healthcare, it seems to get like stifled because you're working so hard, you're building a book of business, the money is awesome. Have you been able to taste like the rewards yet, if you will, of like carving your own path? Because you have not turned your back at all, but you've just carved a very unique path.
Yeah.
Are you starting to feel that reward? Do you think that's down the road?
I think it's both. I think the short term, we've established that this is a business. We've established that we can raise money through sponsorships, and eventually it could be its own standalone business. And I would say, honestly, the money that the podcast brings in today is a healthy amount of money. Cool. I have to be appreciative of that. But I also realize it's just scratching the surface as well. And at the same token that we've had short-term success, I do realize that the more that you can delay gratification or to defer that success to a longer horizon, I believe that the bigger it's going to be.
Yeah.
So like as an example, one of my mentors early on said, never chase the money. Just as simple as that, never chase the money. I have countless times turned down opportunities that paid more money because I believed in betting on myself. I also wanted to be fulfilled, and I also knew that the money would come. And sometimes when you take more in salary, you don't realize what you're also leaving on the table, or you're trading off for that salary.
Oh, shit.
So that's where the realization is: if you can delay that gratification to an unspecific future date, and trust that it's going to come, and then do the work that you want to do to get there. To me, that's a better trade-off than just taking the money and being super unhappy with my life.
Yeah. That is a really interesting point, because we tend to think about this space not entirely in dollars and cents, but it's a huge motivator.
It is a huge motivator. And I'm not money motivated either, but it's only to a degree, and it's not to an obsessive degree, which I think some people that get caught up about the money always, that causes them to compromise their value system and their morals or their ethics. And I never want to get to where I can't sleep at night even though I'm making a lot of money.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier. You said that, and this is near and dear to your heart, the justice element.
Yeah.
Take that question however you want. Explain the justice element of the work that you do.
Okay. So it started, I was telling you, I was listening to the podcast on Stoicism, and they came up with the 4 pillars of Stoicism, and I'll list them real quick to get to justice. It was wisdom, discipline, fortitude, and justice. And I've realized over time, as I got older and started caring more about the big picture stuff, started caring more about culture and politics and the United States of America at large, and like, do I want a better future for my kids and what's it's going to look like? I realized justice is actually a big component of that. And I wouldn't say in the woke form that sometimes it gets used. I'm talking about like true and justice for all kind of stuff. So when I look at the injustices in healthcare and why I get so passionate about it, it's because there are massive injustices in healthcare. And so therefore I want to expose those injustices and talk about how we can fix them. And it's like, why would you do that? Why do you care about somebody you've never met or a situation that doesn't impact you? Because I do believe we have to be sort of the guardians of fairness and ethics and all those things in our industry. And if I'm not talking about it, like, is anybody else going to talk about it? I don't know. So I've leaned into that obligation to talk about those things. And I feel like it gives you a sense of meaning and pride as well.
It's wild. Like the faith piece of it, you mentioned it earlier, the faith piece, and then like being justice driven, like these are big concepts. And when you feel like a minnow in the ocean trying to do something, and you are not fighting against, but going against a multi-trillion-dollar industry.
Of course.
How do you keep the hope alive? Do you keep the hope alive?
So, everybody knows red pill, blue pill from the Matrix, right? Well, there's like the concept of black pill and white pill as well. And a black pill is, we're all doomed, we're all screwed, let's just have drinks and watch the world burn because there's nothing we can do. The white pill is the opposite, which is, I choose hope, I choose optimism. I can't fix it all, but I'm going to fix some things. And so as naive as that is, I take the white pill every morning. I'm like, I'm going to go try to do this today, or I'm going to solve this today. And I think if enough people had hope and optimism and chose to do that thing, the collective could actually fix the problem. And so I would rather be somebody that's out there talking about it, even as if it seems like hopeless. I think we can do things to fix it. And if I can attract more people to be willing and want to lean in to try to fix it, together we can do it. And so I just choose optimism. I think it's a much better way to live life, even if on the surface you'd look at it and say you're wasting your time. I don't think I am. Because we just have to pick our lane and do our best, man. And that's what I tried to do.
Well, and it's interesting because you feel it. Like you've been in conversations, we all have, where it's like, oh, damn, this is heavy. Like even the stuff we talk about, we talked about it on the podcast, like, we could take the approach of black pill, doom and gloom, it's screwed, let's watch it burn. But to have relentless hope almost, are there any specific tangible things that you do? Like speak affirmations, is there like a post-it note in your car? I mean, we're humans, right? So we need reminders. What do you do?
Well, I'm not a vision board guy. I don't necessarily have a mantra and affirmation, although before I do go on stage, I say confident, calm, you do belong. Like that was a reminder I always needed in stand-up.
We say that again?
Confident, calm, you do belong. So be confident, stay calm, and remind yourself that you're supposed to be here. That's why you're presenting on stage. But I've actually found this is going to be like an old guy thing. About to turn 42. Morning walks, dude. Like a morning walk when it's just me, a Celsius, I got my headphones in, or I'm rehearsing something, or I'm just thinking. Man, I've found that like if I start my day there, and it's just me, and I give myself the self-care that I'm supposed to get, my day is better as a result of that, and I'm more motivated and inspired to go about it. And so I'm conscientious of what I put in my ears, but I'm also conscientious of like starting the day off with some healthy activity that'll benefit me 25, 30 years from now.
Sure.
And that's the white pill. That's the white pill in the morning for me.
Yeah. As entrepreneurs, it is oftentimes hard to believe that you have that 30, 45 minutes to go for a morning walk. It's like, I got to get checking my emails.
Set
I got
your
to
alarm at 4:55. That's how you do it, man.
Like Mark Wahlberg. What time does Mark Wahlberg even wake up now? It's like, I'm awake at 2:30 in the morning. Like, what would you say to somebody that says, I don't have the time to do that stuff?
I'd say that's bullshit. I mean, you do. You just don't make the time for it.
Oh, shit.
I mean, that's really, and then I don't know if that's tough love or what, but if you can't do something and you claim you don't have enough time, it's just because you don't value that thing enough to make time for it. Anybody that makes an argument that I don't have time to take care of my health means they're doing something else to waste their time instead that's detrimental to their health. So I know that's probably the harshest thing I'll say, but I think it's reality. Yeah. And so the way I make time is I go, well, I got to be at my daughter's school at 7:30 and I need to go start my day by 8 and I need to be to work to whatever time at night. Yeah. And so how do I find time? I set my alarm for probably an hour and a half earlier than I would want to get up. And then I get up and I go do it and I made the time. Do I sacrifice sleep? I still get enough sleep.
Sure.
I just have to go to bed slightly earlier, right? And so you can make time for things that you think are important. And if you haven't made time and you're using the time as an excuse, the busiest people in the world still have 24 hours a day, and some of the most successful people in the world find time for all the things they need to do every single day. Wow. And so why are you any different?
Yeah, gut punch, for sure. I'm going to pull us back to the comedy thread. Okay. Tom Broker.
Tom Broker.
Where it's a good character.
Yeah.
Where did Tom Broker come from, and how long ago? Give us the genesis story of Tom Broker.
Nathaniel, was it about a year ago? I can't remember. Last August. Okay, yeah. So literally a year ago. No surprise to anybody that's seen it. Is sort of like an homage to Michael Scott from The Office. It's kind of that dunce. Somehow this guy's found himself successful and have some element of power, but he's also a doofus and he seems like completely oblivious to things. I was like, well, what if we applied that to the insurance world? And then the first Tom Broker skit was sort of just making fun of spreadsheeting or something, and I played both characters. But it was like, why don't we just take this hodgepodge of a bunch of bad practices that we all know exist. Let's put them into a singular character. And the funny thing about it is that you get freedom to do stupid things or do things that are bad because it's the dumb character that's doing them. And in the event that you get people to watch, you also use humor to deliver some sort of point. Or, oh, don't be that guy. Don't be Tom Broker. These are the bad things that a Tom Broker does. So you get to deliver a little bit of truth with it as well. And it started out as fun, and it's still really fun. But that character is also an opportunity to highlight some really bad shit that we all know is being done. And then have a fictional character be the one that's actually doing it. So you don't ever have to point fingers and say this person's bad, that person's bad. It's hilarious, though, that early on I got some reactions like, oh, how dare you, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I didn't say it was you doing these things, but you sort of outed yourself.
Self-indictment.
Like this is a fake character, so why are you getting mad about that? It's pretty funny, actually.
Interesting. You answered this earlier, but favorite comic of all time?
Okay. So if I had to narrow it down to one, although I'll give a few also-rans, but Bill Burr, for me, is my favorite comic. So Bill Burr has this incredible knack for ranting in an angry way, but still, like, he stays likable. Like, this guy's literally just, he's talking about punching people and I mean, doing all sorts of stuff that no normal sane person would do. But inside his mind, that's what's going on. And him knowing himself that well, he allows it to come out in this character that he has on stage. But it's also relatable. It's really funny, like the frustrations as a man, as a father, as a husband, running a business, working in the corporate world. Like, he's like an outlet for that sort of frustration that a lot of us probably feel. And I've just found he's just a masterful joke writer. Dude, if you've never seen it, he has this joke where it's basically a segment where he's pitching and catching with himself, but he's pretending he's talking to his younger self. And as he's delivering the joke and talking to him, he's literally throwing and catching. And you can picture him having a conversation with his younger self, but he's playing both characters. It's so masterful.
Interesting.
It's so masterful. And I don't think people realize like how great of a writer he is too, because it just comes out as like this angry rant. It's just brilliant. So I would say if I had to narrow it down to one, and then we talked, I love Shane Gillis, I love Theo Vaughn, I love Louis C.K., Rogan, all those guys, but I think Burr's top for me.
Yeah. Using comedy as a way, we talked about you got to win hearts before you win minds.
Yep.
You're clearly doing that. What has the response been? Has it been a mixed bag of like, how dare you say this? And, oh, this is incredible. Like, take that question however you like.
So the minority of the people are detractors. And what I mean by that is like very few people get angry or upset about it. Everybody understands the joke for the most part and are along with it.
Yep.
It's just been it's been refreshing to get to infuse that creativity and that humor into it. Andy Neary was a big one to like push me to say, you got to use your comedy skills. Why aren't you using those? That's something that not a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And so it's been really fun. One, obviously I told you earlier, to deliver truth, create characters, come up with new concepts, and just have fun. And I actually think sometimes I'll get responses like, oh, I needed to see that today, or that was the best thing posted on the internet today.
Yeah.
And you're like, you give people like a couple minute break too.
Sure.
And they don't feel like they're like screwing off from work, but they got a chance to see something, made them laugh, and hopefully that might give them a better start to their day or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man, there's something divine about being able to deliver humor to people and make them laugh and lighten their day.
Yes.
Like there's a divinity in that. I think there's a divinity in communication. But comedy is just probably the most fun form to do that in.
Yeah.
So I feel honored to be able to do it just even to a degree.
Yeah. I mean, going back to White Pill, like to do that, it feels super bogged down with just, and maybe this is a today thing, maybe it's always been this way. I'm more inclined to believe that it's just all like, what were people thinking during World War II? They're probably, oh, this is the end. It all dies here, right? But being able to use comedy as sort of a white pill is a wild thing, because you're right, everyone's so bogged down with just the state of the world. And if you listen to just the media, you're just gonna build a bunker and not talk to anybody, right? So using the comedy to get people to laugh, it opens up so many doors. My best friend's grandpa, funniest dude I ever met, and he always was self-deprecating. He never made fun of other people. And if he did, he would make fun of like his really close people in a high-level way.
Yeah.
Have you found that using comedy just opens up doors to allow you to have other conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say, it's also a couple things that comedy gives you. It gives you levity. Like in the time when like turmoil, right? Comedy is a reprieve from the stress and the anxiety that people feel.
That's great.
The other thing is like you're never supposed to punch down. So like if you joke about yourself first, then that allows you to make fun of other people too, because you're starting with yourself and you're making sure that they don't think you feel better than them or whatever.
Yeah.
But your last part of that question though, how has comedy done what again? I'm sorry.
How does it just open doors?
Yeah. So. All sorts of stuff, dude. I mean, I get recognized at industry events now. I get asked to do public speaking as a result of that. People will quote Tom Broker.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
They're like, oh, that last episode was great. Or they'll like, usually every episode will have a line that people love. And so they'll comment like, oh, that's my favorite line of the episode. But really, like, if you think about it from a career perspective, what do people, if you're in sales or you're a business owner, what do you really need people to do? You need them to be aware of who you are, hopefully know, like, and trust you, and then want to be around you or want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Comedy is a way to sort of accomplish all of those things.
Wow.
And I think people miss the opportunity to put content out that they like or that communicates their value and realize rather than hounding people to prospect, you can sort of say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. Self-select into my ecosystem if you want, if we share values or things like that. And if you want to be here, I can cast the net each post and have people come into that ecosystem and say, I want to be here and I want to follow you. So they're that lever to be able to really like, I don't know, pull like a really, what would you call a big impactful lever like that. I think people miss out the opportunity. So comedy is a universal art form that everybody loves to laugh, no matter who you are. And so if you have an opportunity to use that to your advantage or just to have fun or to bring people into your network, like that's a great gift to be able to have.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. On that note, and you've mentioned this is an Andy Neary thing. Shout out Andy Neary. you have two ways to, build a book of business or do anything.
Yep.
It's call,
yep.
and find your people, which is going to be, 5-10% of the people you call. Or counterintuitively, build a brand and then self-select and have people enter into that ecosystem.
Yep.
Why do you think people don't do that? I mean, frankly, if you put it on paper, it may look like the most circuitous route, but the easiest thing to do would be to build a personal brand, have people attract in. But why are so many people doing it the old way?
Fear.
Yeah?
Yeah. They don't think like, why me? They think, who am I to do this? I think a lot of people have that mentality about themselves. Like they may see you or I make content and go, I want to do that. But then they start like analyzing themselves and get insecure and go, well, why me? Why should I do that? Or who cares what I have to say?
Yeah.
So there's a fear element to it as well. And then you ask anybody like top 3 things they're most scared of, it's public speaking.
Yeah.
Or being in front of people, right? So like putting yourself out there in front of the world to be judged, I think people get afraid of that. But I'd actually answer, it's not either or.
Okay.
You don't abandon cold calling. You don't abandon cold DMs or prospecting. But if you're only doing that, then that's a very difficult way to prospect solely.
Sure.
So you better be a master at the cold call, or otherwise you're going to struggle. So you can also use content that lessens your need to cold call, but probably also will make you more effective at cold calling. Because imagine this, I call you up and say, hey, Luke, it's Spencer. I work for Pareto. And you go, Spencer, dude, I know you. I watch your stuff.
Yeah.
So now you have that ability to have people know, like, and trust you before you ever talk to them. So I can be like, hey, it's Spencer, Self-Funded with Spencer podcast. And go, dude, I've listened to all your episodes.
Yeah,
and you go, well, cool. Hey, let me talk to you about this now, right?
Yeah,
they know you for something. So you're not some stranger calling out of the blue and bothering them. You have something that they identify you with, and therefore it's a much better door opener.
Yeah.
So I'd argue you have to do both of those things.
Sure.
You should do both.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just thought of this. You obviously love people. Why, what's the question I want to ask? Like,
Why? Why do you love people?
There's mission work being done here. And we've spoken about calling, we've spoken about gifts and whatever, but how... the love of people, how do you keep that alive? Is that just an innate thing? Like, where did that come from?
Man, I wish I kind of knew, but I found that the more that I get to know people deeply, and one of the beautiful things about a podcast or something like this is you spend hours at a time with folks uninterrupted. No laptops, no phones.
Yeah.
You and I are talking, right? You get your phone to ask the questions, but that's it. You and I are talking. Like, you can get so much below the surface that you typically get. And I found almost universally so, once I get to know somebody pretty deeply, I like them.
Sure.
And people are infinitely unique. We're all individuals, and there's 7 billion of us in the world. I learn something from somebody. There's elements that I like about somebody. I also understand we all have flaws, myself included, and the more you know them, the more you'll give them grace as a result of that as well. And I love human beings. And so the fact that I get to do this as part of my job and every day get to know people, they give you energy, they implant new ideas into your mind, and they make you better, as a result as well. It's like, what a blessing to be able to do something like that.
If you could have a 4-hour dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh. I'm trying not to go to my initial reaction, but I think it is the person I'd most likely want to sit down with is Joe Rogan. And I know that sounds like kind of cliche, but Rogan is like, this guy's into health. He's into, MMA. He's into hunting. He's done comedy. He's done acting. He has the biggest podcast in the world. It's like just to be able to sit down with him and understand his process, ask questions, shoot the shit, get a chance to pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think he just seems like a cool, genuine guy. So you could have a drink with him or a cigar. I think that would be fun. So if I could pick one person, I'd go, Joe Rogan, call me, dude.
I have heard notoriously that he just likes to DM people that he just hears about and be like, hey, you want to come on the podcast?
That would be so sick. I mean, we're 3 hours away. I can make that happen. If he calls me now, I'm in my car, I'm going, dude.
Bingo. Our wives are the bedrock of our success. How has your relationship with her shaped the work that you do?
Did your wife write that question?
Slipped it in there. Where'd this come from?
So one of the beautiful things is my wife understands me. She accepts my flaws. but she also pushes me and encourages me to be better. So that's whether that's pursuit of a career, whether that's accountability to go to the gym with her, be a better father, the dreams that we've cast together. Like she's constantly that person behind me saying like, come on, let's do this. Like, so if I ever get like frustrated or down or doubt, like she'll push me forward. Yeah. And I think that's good having that person that's constantly with you, balancing you out, but also urging you to be your best self as well.
Yeah.
And that's the genuine best answer I can give. We've been together 18 years now.
Wow.
She knows me better than anybody in the world.
Yeah.
Knows me, and she's still around. So
yeah.
I guess I'm doing all
right,
man.
Yeah. Well, it speaks to something like you have somebody that knows you so well, and to have that support, because there have undoubtedly been times where it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? But to have her be like, go on. Carry on. And that is...
like, look, for example, with travel with Pareto, more than, probably we would like, but a necessary part of the job because it's who I am and they want me to be there in person a lot. She's accepted it, and then we figured out how to create a balance, and she's a stay-at-home mom, so she can handle the kids. And of course, after 2 or 3 days of gone, she wants some relief, and I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But she also understands, going back to earlier when we talked about that long-term mission, the delaying of gratification.
Yeah.
She knows that there's reward to that on the other side as well, and so she's bought in with me too.
Yeah. Smart. I mean, Steve says it all the time. I'm like, man, Rachel, my wife is so incredible, and she encourages me, and she just says, hey, do your thing. He's like, she's also the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Because they know their success on the back end.
Yeah.
And they're wise enough to know, like, hey, let them go, do their thing. I have so much faith that they are going to deliver. And when you have that faith inherently baked in, it just adds to the responsibility, not in a heavy way, but like, I got to put on. I got to put on for my family.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, it's an obligation to perform, man. I mean, that's like when you're fulfilling your duties, like my obligation is to perform. This is what I do for my family. She does what she does for the family.
Yeah.
And so when you feel that weight, it's not the weight of the world, but that responsibility is what I think, especially we're both men, so I can talk through that lens, but to make us men is to make us better and to, pressure forms diamonds, all those things. And so like as that obligation increases, your performance level has to increase as well.
Sure.
And having a good spouse or wife with you doing that, they make you better as a result. And that's what I love, dude. Question for you though.
Oh shit.
Your wife is the bedrock for you and your family. You talked a little bit about that, but like, how does she support you and your initiatives? Like, how is it 2 + 2 = 3 in y'all's relationship as well?
Yeah. Man, I thought it was going to be one thing, but it is something totally different. What I mean is, I think when I first started the entrepreneurial journey, I was like, oh, I spend so much time with my wife. I need to have a thought partner with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And when I would come home and have a thought partner, but not like this, I'd be like, oh, like I'm not whatever. And I was like, hey, like, that's not her role.
Yeah.
Her role is not to be Spencer or Steve or Nathaniel. That's going back to like the power of male relationship, being in the foxhole together, like building, and it can be male, female, I'm not whatever, but to know that she is just carte blanche, like she trusts me so much.
Yeah.
And something Steve and I say all the time is in the still silence, when I'm doing something, am I honoring Steve? Am I honoring Rachel?
Yeah.
And that's this huge like, I'm on Instagram. It's okay, take a break, that's fine. Are you fucking around?
Yeah.
Like, and knowing that the people that have put
something else.
Avoiding something else, knowing that people are trusting you to do something.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest encouragement from Rachel, I literally just the other night, I was super down. I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Is this worth it? And she just paused and said, yes. And just stared at me. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. She was just like,
awesome, dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
you need that, dude.
Don't ask yourself that question. And if you do, ask me and I will always fucking tell you yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love
totally.
that.
So, yeah, again.
To your point, you made me think of something I told my wife one time. It was like, I told her, even when I'm not thinking about you, I'm thinking about you. And what I meant by that is I may not be consciously thinking about her in that moment, but what I'm doing is thinking about what I'm supposed to do for her or for the family over time.
Yeah.
I was like, I was kind of proud of myself for that.
That's
even
a good
when I'm not
one.
thinking, but it was like, it was important for me to actually, it was my own self-reflection of recognizing that. I just didn't say that to be romantic. It's like, everything I do, I'm always thinking about how does this impact my family or what's the purpose behind it.
Yes.
Even I'm not consciously thinking about what I'm doing for her in that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's how, for me, if I'm living that way and I'm always, at least in my subconscious, making decisions because of that, I'll be on the right path.
Yeah. Like you have this person that you esteem, and to do right by them.
Yeah.
To just do right by them and have your wife say, I'm married to Spencer. I'm Mrs. Smith. have Rachel be like, I'm Mrs. Aslesen. Like, and we talk about that too. How do we create like, there's generational wealth and then there's generational namesake. Like, how do people say, oh shit, like, oh, Spencer Smith's your dad? Like, oh, we all know those people.
Yeah.
And they have built a foundation via reputation. There's usually wealth attached to that because those type of people build something really cool. But how do you, like, there's power in a name and being able to say all of the people that are associated with me. I want people to say, Luke is my friend, Luke is my business partner, Luke is my husband, Luke is my father, Luke is my whatever. Like, brand attached to Luke because I am so proud of what I'm doing. And it's not about Luke. It's actually about all my other people to like, I want to make them proud. Let's make everybody proud. And like, the more that we do that, it's not about us. It's truly not about us.
I agree.
And it's funny because we're in this, people probably think, oh, if it's not about you, shut up. But
it's not about you as you sit in front of a camera and talk about yourself for 2 hours.
But genuinely, like, we are trying to build something that serves other people. We just have a very specific vehicle that we're able to do that with. So,
I'm glad you actually finally said your last name like 4 hours into talking because I didn't know how to pronounce it. So
I know it's Aslesen.
Aslesen.
Yep. Okay. At a certain point, this is all going to be done. This is all going to be gone. You're going to be retired. You're going to be sitting in a rocking chair. What do you want? Just one thing or one thought. What do you want people to say about Spencer Smith?
If at most they say he was a good guy or a good person, like that's enough for me, honestly, because what that translates to me is like he was honest, he did good work, he valued other people, he was a good friend, a good family member, etc. And so if they just reflect it back and say, yeah, Spencer was a great guy, like I don't know what more you can ask for in this life is to people think that about you. Like, you get specific accomplishments and all that stuff is great. But I think, were you a good person or not? Did you give value to the world or not? And if the answer is yes, then you're successful. And if people look back and go, I hated that guy sucked, or he was a jerk, like you don't want that either. That just means your life's work was net negative on the world. So if you're net positive, then I think that's a winning way to live the life.
Tell us about your car.
Oh, okay. You mean the one that we're going to have a video of us ripping donuts in the parking lot? That car?
That's the one.
All right, so long and short is a 2020 Jack Roush edition Ford Mustang. JRE is what they call it. It's 60 of them were made in 2020.
Crazy.
It's a supercharged 5-liter Coyote engine. It's got the most horsepower of any Roush. It's a 775 horsepower, I think 670 foot-pounds of torque. It sounds crazy.
It sounds
great. You can turn the exhaust down and up.
Wild.
It's got some Recaro seats with red, suede stitching, and it's like a, what would you describe it? Like a ruby red? I'm not sure exactly how.
It's like like burgundy red. Just like a rich, nice.
Yeah,
red.
And it admittedly wasn't my favorite color, but that was the only color they released those 60 in, and I was just like, I gotta have that too. And the thing that I want everybody to understand about Mustangs, they sound great, they're high horsepower, they're fun, they're a little wild, but there's a big component to me that's like an everyman's car. So no matter how successful you are, they're still accessible to the masses. And that's awesome to me because you can afford Porsches and Ferraris and Lambos or whatever, hopefully, if that's what you want. But there's something about a Mustang that just like connects to the middle class. I mean, it's like it doesn't feel like it's out of reach. Even if you are successful or like wildly successful, I would still have Mustangs in my garage. Because that spirit of the American muscle, I just attach it and associate it with it.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you're right. Like you could be making 50 grand a year, you're making 500 grand a year. There is a Mustang for you.
Yes.
And it's just like classic Americana.
Yeah, dude.
Classic Americana.
Send that to Ford.
Celsius.
Ford,
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. We're grasping at straws here, dude. Yeah. Yeah. So how do we wrap up? I know we want to get you guys out and do your thing. What can I ask you? Let me pick out one of these questions, dude.
I've got my rap question for you.
Okay. All right. But I want to put you on the hot seat for one moment. You got to answer at least one of these questions.
Put me there, baby.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. All right, this is a fun one, but tell me about you.
Ooh.
So there's two different categories. Favorite comedy movie or series?
Okay. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay.
I love Larry David. I love Larry David. He is just like, my family would tell you that I'm the asshole. Okay. Oddly enough, because but it's because I say the thing that everybody else is thinking, and I'm just the one who says it. And oftentimes it's just, again, comedy. I love comedy, and Larry David has this way. I mean, for crying out loud, the dude wrote Seinfeld, right? So he's obviously got something, but there's just something about the dude, and then his relationship with Leon, like it's just comedy gold.
It's a brilliant series. I would say it's actually one of those series that's sort of underappreciated, most likely as well. I wouldn't put it in my personal top 5, but I've watched a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Every episode I watch is like hilarious.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And then movie.
Yeah, movie. What about movie? Comedy movie.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Times at Ridgemont. That's it. Actually, that's one's out of left field.
Oh,
what
totally.
is it about that one that connects with you, dude?
First of all, like Sean Penn. To look at Sean Penn now, like the dude in Ukraine, like doing he is so wildly different than what he was. And you see Jeff Spicoli, and you're just like, he plays the original stoner.
Yeah.
The original stoner. It was that like 70s, just kind of a little bit hokey. Forrest Whitaker originally is in that movie.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that.
Who else? There's a whole bunch of people, but it's just like stupid comedy of just, again, there's really no point to the story.
Well, that's the brilliance of comedy, dude. As long as it's, like my old acting coach told me, story is character, character is story. And sometimes a good enough character tells a story, and it doesn't really have to do a whole lot. You just want to watch the character. That's the story for you. So, all right, so the other one, the follow-up to that is drama series. So drama series, drama movie. Where are you going with that?
Love The Town with Ben Affleck, Jeremy Renner. Oh, bro.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I think there's something in there's a little boy in every man that wants to play cops and robbers. Everyone wants to rob a bank.
Dude, my 4-year-old is carrying around a little 6-shooter, and he calls them shooter guns right now, and he also has his ninja swords, and all day long, that's all he wants to do is ninja swords and shooter guns, That's in every boy.
Love The Town. Like, I love accents. One of my prereqs is like, if there's a great character or a great accent in the movie, I'm gonna watch it. So there's that one. But then also a little dark, maybe not, Blood Diamond. I love Blood Diamond.
Wow, I forgot about
I lived in Africa for a year, and something about watching that movie, it's super nostalgic because, granted, I lived in a different area, but Africa to a certain extent is very similar in a lot of places that you go. So it touched the nostalgia piece of it, but then also just like, it's a substantive like movie. There's actually something going on there. And the acting is really cool. And it's just, again, it's just rogue. You've got this really likable character. The character development for Leonardo DiCaprio is you just think he's this scumbag. And then the more you learn about him and then the way the movie ends, you're like, oh, this is a great dude. This is an awesome dude. So,
that's a good call. Okay.
Yep.
2 unexpected answers, though. I appreciate that, man. I like it. Okay, cool.
Rap question.
Okay.
And I'm going to bite off Tim Ferriss. You probably heard this question.
Okay.
If you could have one message on a billboard that everybody would see, what would that message say?
That there is hope. I mean, just as simple as that. There is hope. We talked about white pilling earlier. I think whether it's in my industry, whether it's with your health, or whether it's politics or culture, or things you don't like, there's always hope. And if you find that through God and faith, if you find that through hard work, you find that through friends, you find that through entertainment, I do believe there's always reason to be hopeful and have hope. And so, if that caught somebody that was down while they were driving by, or somebody that was depressed or suicidal ideations or something like that, like, there is hope. And so you should live your life knowing that there is hope.
Cool. Great way to end.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Felt good.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think we need to sign off or anything, but
Celsius. Call me. Yeah.